What is the worst thing you've ever been accused of while being completely innocent? Posted this before, but seems relevant. I was fighting with my brother, realized the fight was dumb, so I just went to my room. My brother decides to punch himself and blame me. My mom is yelling at me and grounding me. So I figured if I was about to get in trouble for it, I should actually do it. I turned around and clocked my brother in the face, to which he responded, "I can't believe she actually did that," and my mom realized he has been lying. I ended up not getting in trouble. Drugs. Shockingly enough, my parents' divorce made me act out at 9 years old, and I kept distracting other kids in class. My mom was convinced it was because I was doing drugs and yanked hair out of my head, made me get blood tested. They found nothing because I was 9 years old. I was accused of destroying a window at school by dropping a rock from a higher floor. Interrogated by the principal, parents were called, friends had to fund the repairs, bullied on the bus. It freaking sucked. Find out who it was 2 years later, but by then, nobody cared. I helped a friend of my mother move when I had just turned 18 for no pay, and this lady accused me of stealing one of her guns. I booked her straight to the police department to explain the situation. When she tried to report me, they told her she was crazy, they already spoke to me, and that criminals that steal guns don't go directly to the police. This is tame compared to others in this thread, but it's one that stuck with me for ages. When I was really little, around 6, my aunt was babysitting me. My sweet dog was shedding fur. My aunt accused me of cutting her fur. She had me across her knees saying she wouldn't spank me if I admitted it. I was sobbing uncontrollably because I loved my dog and would never do that to her. My mom came home not long after, and I do remember her being livid. Despite my issue with my mom, she never once laid a hand on me. My mom couldn't believe that her sister never comprehended that animals shed fur in clumps. Probably kicking my young son. I was carrying something like hot tea or soup, and he went to grab me, so I put my knee out to stop him getting close to me and scathed myself. But for some reason, everyone else in the room thought I kicked him or kneed him. Very strange situation. When I was 16, I was riding with a friend back to another friend's house and the cops pulled him over. I had nothing on me. He, unbeknownst to me, threw a bag of coke underneath my chair. Cops found it, put us both in jail. They took him to county jail while they put me into juvenile. He got out before me and hired a lawyer, pinned it on me through family connections. Got the charges reduced from a felony to a misdemeanor because I was a good kid and it showed. Ruined my life for a good 5 years. Just heard that the kid all grown up broke into his ex-girlfriend's house to steal drugs and is pretty much a burnout loser. I'm applying for law school next spring. Drugs. When I was in high school, I had a very monotonous voice that my parents thought was fake, and anytime we were out, they would ask someone to tell me what I sound like because they thought that if I was embarrassed enough, I would talk normally. Instead, it made me talk less and I shut out some of my friends in my life. When they realized I wasn't talking, they jumped to conclusion and accused me of doing drugs. What really made them think I was doing drugs was when I lost $20 at my school's picnic. They were constantly counting my money to see if they can prove I was doing drugs and realized that I was missing $40 and told me to tell me what happened to it. I explained to them that I had a picnic at school and brought $40 with me, but lost half of it. They said my story didn't add up, so they started to rummage through my backpack and room anytime I wasn't at home and would ask for the names of my friends and anyone that I was talking to so they could run background checks on them. I was 14 and just started to learn how to use a digital camera. The only one I had at the time was my mom's. Sometimes after my birthday, the SD card that my mom's went missing. My dad immediately went to blame me for it and my mom was hoping I didn't do it. After over an hour interrogating me, we couldn't find it. Come to find out, my mom had put it in her normal place of valuables she keeps it in. I didn't even get a freaking apology. I had just moved to a new school in 5th grade. I was never great at making new friends, so I thought I would just sugar them up by bringing sugar mixed with Kool-Aid. Something that was popular at my old school. Who doesn't love a bunch of 10-year-olds licking their fingers and dipping them in a baggie of sugar? Apparently, an older kid had given several 1st graders heroin during this time, and it got pegged on me. I was removed from class, police came. I created like a little bench because I didn't understand why they thought my grape Kool-Aid was heroin. I kept telling him to taste it. The principal finally did and realized I was telling the truth. In 3rd grade, I walked to a convenience store with $2 and spent 20 minutes trying to decide what candy to get, picking things up and putting them back. The old lady clerk accused me of stealing and said to never come back. That was a bit problematic given that it was the only gas station in my small town and I've moved back and been living here for the last 15 years. We lived in a townhome condo complex. My mom was fighting with the board over misuse funds. When she was at work, there was a knock at her door. One of the neighbors had an emergency and asked if I could come and watch her kids while she went to the hospital. Sure, I was 16 and have been babysitting for 4 years. I spent a few hours looking after the 2 kids, 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. I got home before my mom. We started dinner and there was a knock at the door. It was a parapolice. The mother had gone to the police station and accused me of abusing her 3-year-old. She said that I hit her and then locked her in the dryer for several hours. My mom asked the cop if he was insane. She pointed out that I was the kid who picked up calipers off the walk and put them on the grass so people wouldn't step on them. She asked the cops to point out the complainant. When he pointed, my mom asked me if I was crazy because that's the woman who stole funds from the condo board. Why would I go there? I said I didn't know that and that she had to go to the hospital immediately because her dad had had a heart attack. The cops said they would be back. They came back an hour later and said I would not need to come with them after all. Turns out dad was alive and well. I wasn't so well after having a full-blown panic attack for an hour. My sister's friend who lived with my family for a while when we were 15 through 18 accused me of rape. She told my dad, my stepmom, my sister, all of her friends and my friends at our school that I raped her. Had to find out because people were coming up to me in the halls ready to throw hands. I found out during lunch and confronted her in front of all her friends and asked why people thought I raped her. She ended up admitting that she made it up because she had a huge crush on me. She also later accused my older brother, my best friend, her ex-boyfriend, and another guy. She's a very toxic person. When I was 11, I was accused by a babysitter that I was molesting my sister when I was really playing my Nintendo DS with her. It was completely unbelievable because she said that she made it all up because she didn't want to change diapers. She got fired by my mom and the last I saw her, she was living in her car. I was 9 and in a Girl Scout. I was attending a Girl Scout camp and the leader accused me of throwing trash around the campsite. She made me sit in a chair in the corner of a building. I remember crying over the whole situation. For the record, I didn't throw trash around the campsite. The leader was a mean woman. I know this is ridiculous, but in the 2nd grade, another child accused me of calling my teacher a bench. No one believed me when I claimed innocent, and I got a spanking and was forced to apologize. I felt so powerless because since all the adults believed I was guilty, and in fact I was, I think I'm still a little mad about it. Wife and I were asleep in bed, and when we woke up, she rolled over to get out of bed. She hit her eye on the corner of her nightstand and it left a sick, nasty bruise black eye for about a week. I had friends asking me if I hit her, and one friend gave me the business saying, "It's not cool to hit your wife." That friend actually beats his wife. A friend who became a friend with benefits called me lying jerk the first time we had sex, following immediately by told me that you had a vasectomy. She didn't realize that a vasectomy just takes the seed out of the orange juice. It doesn't eliminate the orange juice. Pedophilia, but only because the person is legitimately crazy and thinks the only reason a male would become a teacher is that they're into kids. My favorite teacher in high school was in his mid-20s and was absolutely paranoid over catching an accusation like this. I guess his brother, which was also a teacher, got accused of it and it ruined his career. He would make sure he didn't spend 1 second alone with any student, always had another teacher in the room if he was talking to a lone student about something, never said a word outside the scope of professionalism, started every year off with the same speech: "Do not come up and hug me. We aren't friends. I'm here to teach, you're here to learn." Did everything the right way. Then he caught a sophomore student getting a high between buildings at lunch and this little explicit ran off and told her mom he showed her his dick. Game over for him. Even though 3 other students were nearby and witnessed the whole thing, it was a small school and they weren't going to take any chances. My mom accused me of smoking weed back in high school because she found a matchbook in my pants. I only had the matchbook because it had a really funny Mexican man on it, so I decided to pocket it. My real crime was racism, or stereotyping, I guess. My father was accused of murdering the neighbor's dog and disposing it at a remote beach. I was a kid, we had a rocky relationship with one of the neighbors because they had a yappy dog that they took very poor care of. It drove the whole street mad because for some reason it never got taken away by animal control. A few years ago, my parents moved to another part of town. Afterwards, my dad worked in the old house to get it ready to sell. One day he was on the driveway when the neighbors left in their car. They made eye contact. Then when the neighbors returned, their dog was specifically missing. They instantly accused my dad of sneaking over and butchering the dog because he had enough of it. He tried to explain that an animal control van had briefly come through the street shortly after they left, but they weren't having a bar of it. They were so convinced he had done something, they started a massive social media campaign to pressure him into admitting it, including invading all the local community groups and outing him. They even went so far as to drive an hour out of town to the beach we often go to in the weekend to put up posters. It was wild, stressful, and stupid. It only stopped after we picked up a lawyer and sent a cease and desist letter threatening to take them to court for public defamation. The dog was never found and apparently they had 2 new ones now. This was also the same family that found someone's lost cat and decided to keep it. In 4th grade, someone kept stealing mouse balls from the computer lab. I remember our teacher warning us about it. One day, My teacher pulled me aside and told me that someone had accused me of being the mouse ball thief. It was a guy I was friendly with, but not friends with, kind of an outcast. I assured him this was totally false, and I think he believed me. The next day at school, I looked inside my pencil box, and what do I find? But a mouse ball sitting inside. I'm freaking out. I go up to the teacher, probably talking a million miles an hour about how I didn't steal the mouse ball, didn't know why it was in my pencil box, etc. He looked at me doubtful and said we'll have to get with the principal and figure out what to do with me. The whole evening, I'm still freaking out. My mom has the idea of looking my accuser up in the phone book. I looked that jerk up and confronted him and his father about what was happening. He denied doing anything on the phone. The next day, the kid admitted to the teacher first thing he had planted the ball as a practical joke. Saw the guy years later and he was trying to be friendly. I found myself still ticked off about this incident, causing several enough trouble on the bus that it was warranted a middle-class trip to see the vice principal. A girl showed up at my study block junior year of high school asking for someone with a name similar to mine, but not my actual name. The teacher sent her away, but she came back a few minutes later insisting that this was the right room. The teacher then looked at me and decided close enough and sent me off. Even in hindsight, I'll say I was a good kid. I never did anything that would get me in trouble. That walk was the longest walk I've ever had in my life, and by the time I got to the office, I was in tears. He sat me down, patiently got me to stamper my name out and what bus I rode, and then told me I was definitely not the right person. My teacher looked downright crushed when I came back to class. The vice principal and I were best friends after that though. During the first week of high school, I got called into the office because rumors were flying around that I was planning to blow up the school, and I had already rigged it with explosive. This was obviously news to me. Then about a year later, I had my wisdom teeth removed and missed a week of school. When I finally came back, my friends had to explain the freaked out looks I kept getting from classmates. Apparently, a boy who regularly picked on me had vanished from school about the same time I did, and the rumors going around was that I killed him, eaten him, and then been arrested. Everybody was surprised to see me because they spent the last week telling each other about how I was in jail and how he was in my stomach. Folks sure make up weird rumors. The boy was fine, FYI. He'd just been suspended. In fairness to the other kids, I was that weirdo from an abusive home who cracked strange jokes to cope with life. And you know, resting bench face? Well, I had a resting enraged face. I assumed the side effect of being a parental punching bag. It wasn't the worst, but definitely hurt. My sister once accused me of stealing her laptop that she had gotten from her birthday. My dad got all ticked and said that I probably stole it so I could sell it or some dumb crap. He kept telling me to give it back and I kept saying I didn't have it. Well, a while later, the little bench comes out of her room holding the laptop. It turns out it was under her bed the entire time. Anabolic steroids. I was a high jumper on my college track and field team, and we would have to do urine tests every so often. Well, one of mine came back from the lab positive for anabolic steroids, which gives women who take them strongly manly-like features. I was 5'8", 125 pounds. Luckily, the lab broke the test into 2 samples and eventually tested the second sample, showing it was clean. Apparently, the lab had a contaminated batch of test tubes, and the company had to fly reps into my college to apologize to me and a baseball player this both happened to. It was a scary couple weeks. I got kicked out of a sit-down restaurant during my company's Christmas party for doing drugs in the bathroom. When the manager told me to leave and that they don't allow that behavior here, my boss and 20 other employees vouched for me that I have not left the table for 2 hours. The manager called my boss an idiot and made me leave. No one in my company has been there since. There is a creative writing class at my high school for seniors. You have to write a creative piece to apply to the class. I wrote a piece and got into the class. The class was in my second semester during spring. At the end of the fall semester, my mom takes me out of the class. Why? She accused me of plagiarizing my paper because she thought I didn't write it. She said that it wasn't like the papers that I wrote before. I did write it though. She didn't even have proof. I've been accused of assault twice. The first time at the police station, they showed me pictures of a girl who accused me. She had cuts all over her arms and face that weren't there when I left. This psycho had self-harm in order to get me in trouble. Police quickly realized that since I was significantly shorter and lighter than her, and I had defensively and not offensively wounds, that I was innocent. Really freaked me up. I got pregnant at 19 and my family flipped out on me. I miscarried and they all thought I had an abortion. I definitely did not. Purposefully pushing my friend's little sister off the bed and breaking her arm. We were both jumping and she fell, but her older sister and her mom refused to believe that I didn't push her. I was 7 or 8 and the little girl was 3 or 4. It still messes with me that they instinctively thought I would do something like that. I was like 6 or 7 years old and my family took us to this big house party hosted by our pastor's house. While there, I found the other kids and we started playing. Well, there were some bars that there along the stairs, and this girl decided she wanted to play jail and started pushing on the bars pretending she was in jail, and she broke the bars. So, for the rest of the party, she went around telling everyone, look what this kid did. accusing me. Well, they got around to the owner of the house and they weren't happy because they just renovated it. My parents had to offer to pay for repairs, all because I was too afraid to tell them it wasn't my fault. Domestic abuse by a partner that didn't want to end our relationship. It cost me a promotion because I was being investigated for domestic violence. She filed a false police report that entailed this, and she was never charged a felony in my state. My ex-wife told her friends I had been beating her physically. I never knew until many of our friends started avoiding me, bad-mouthing me, etc. I finally asked a friend why the change. He said, "We know what's been going behind closed doors." Told him I had no idea what he was talking about. She got mad because I wouldn't give her unlimited amount of spending money. I still have no idea what she spent the first $10,000 on. I have never ever touched her nor threatened to. During holiday season, a lot of retail stores hire extra security for their stores to prevent shoplifting. On an important side note, a lot of these security guards get bonuses based on the numbers of people they catch trying to shoplift. One holiday season, I was shopping at a chain cosmetic store and was accused of shoplifting. Turns out they were sneaking products in my bag when I wasn't looking and taped my shoulder, so I was walking out. I did make a purchase at that store, but I didn't realize what was in my bag because I paid using Apple Pay on my phone, which doesn't require me to look in my bag. Also, the fact that it was a larger bag that I was exclusively using to put purchase items in because I was holiday shopping for several people. Store people obviously were in there as well, since they didn't care for what I had to say. Didn't check cameras on my request because the guard witnessed me putting products in my bag. I also couldn't fight hard because I was an international student on a visa. Expulsion from school meant getting kicked out of the country. Bank robbery. I was early for my first day as a gas jockey in a new city. I was across the street from the gas station, digging through my backpack when suddenly someone told me to show them my hands. I was totally confused to look up and see two RCMP officers with hands on their sidearms. Turns out there has been a bank robbery around the corner a few minutes before, and my gas jockey uniform and backpack matched the description. They looked inside my bag containing my brown bag lunch and a paper bag, and they were gone in a flash. Apparently, the guy didn't get caught until another bank robbery in the same area. Was headed home one night after an evening with friends. I walked past a local bar, realizing it was closed, turned around and saw a friend who was working as a waitress sitting on a newspaper box, getting friendly with a guy in a flannel shirt. Immediately I could tell she was just crap-faced drunk and the guy was getting handsy. I knew she lived in the neighborhood across town and had a boyfriend. So I called out, "Hey, you alright?" She looks over, says my name in acknowledgement. I hold up my phone and say, "You okay? You want me to get you an Uber?" And this look comes across her face, just changes her features. Immediately she jumps up and runs into the bar next door, runs into the ladies' bathroom. I follow her in to make sure she's alright, intending on getting her that Uber so she could get home safely, as I said. We were friends and she freaking tells the bartender that I was trying to molest her, that it was me that had my hand up her skirt. Seriously? Not sure if it was a drunken state she sorts of crosswired between what the guy was doing and me, or she's just been assaulted before and she was triggered. But freak that. The freaking bar turns on me and I was lucky to have made it out of there. Since that night, I stayed the freak away from bartenders and servers and their little cliques. You want to get fingers stuck from an unwashed lumberjack on a newspaper box on a sidewalk? Not my freaking business. Ex-boyfriend and I broke up on extremely messy terms. I won't detail everything, but a lot happened leading up to the breakup. I changed colleges and he told his friends and everyone who knew me that he got me pregnant, and that's why I left. Considering premarital sex warrants disownment in our culture, this screwed up my relationship with my parents. We never even had sex, but I suppose he didn't want to admit I ended things. Of course, news spread and came back to my parents. They disowned me after accusing me of being a tramp, even going so far that I have slept with my male friends. Around the time that they officially disowned me, I was waiting for results to confirm whenever or not I had breast cancer. My parents didn't believe me until 2 years after the lie. I was accused of being sexually assaulted by a male friend and lying about it. Male friend and girlfriend had a nasty breakup. Girlfriend's sister announced to the world that male friend sexually assaulted her. No one believes her, including girlfriend, mainly because she has a history of this. I do not know if she was telling the truth. I'm inclined to believe my friend, but I wasn't there, so I can't know. Anyways, girlfriend's sister then announces that he assaulted me on more than one occasion, but then I never reported him and I'm lying because he's my friend. She claims to have proof that I told her all about one night and claims to have emails that she could never produce. She never actually reported anything to the police, just made a lot of noise about it in our social circle and made life difficult for male friend for some time. I was never assaulted. Male friend was always a decent human being to me, but for a few months I had to repeatedly set the record straight with people who had been told otherwise. When I was in elementary school, my friend tickled me while I was hanging from the monkey bars. She was very tall for her age and could touch the bar with her feet on the ground. I was super short, so the fall I took when I lost my grip was pretty long and I had a lot of time to flare and desperately tried to grab something to save myself. Unfortunately, my tiny hands found the waistband to her leggings and I took them to the ground with me, exposing her undies. She sprinted away and went straight to the principal's office to say that I had pantsed her on this playground. This being a very weird, small, hyper-religious elementary school, the incident was taken extremely seriously. The principal cautioned me about my obvious perversion and much ado was made about how this would reflect on my permanent record. Years later, my mom revealed to me that the school was toying with the idea of expulsion. The thought of me as a very small 6-year-old girl being reprimanded with this level of gravity about this alleged pantsing is so silly now that it was very scary back then. Accused of breaking a girl's arm on a bouncy house at a local fair when I was like 8 years old. Had been on there only a few seconds, was just doing my thing and I heard screaming. We all stopped and the girl had an obvious broken arm and pointed at me and said, "He did it. Dude in charge, kicked me off, no refund." I found my family, explained it to them, and my uncle said he was recording me on his camcorder when it happened. It was 1982 and the camcorder was the size of a briefcase and ran out VHS tapes, but we had no way to play it back while there. We went home, plugged the thing into the VCR and played it back. Absolutely 100% that wasn't me. But then I got a life lesson in how being right doesn't mean you win. My dad pointed out we'll have to walk 15 minutes back to the bouncy house and argue with them, with no way of showing them the video unless they sent someone to our house to watch it. All to get the 10p that I paid for 5 minutes on the bouncy house. It would have been at best a punitive victory, but most likely they would tell us to pee off. I bought a nice DSLR camera and was all excited to get into photography. I walked down the street to the gigantic local park with my new $1,000 wide-angle lenses and tried to learn the basics of how it works. After 30 minutes, a beach blonde soccer mom kept asking me something, but she was yelling from 100 feet away so I couldn't really hear her. I approached to see what she wanted, and when I was 30 feet away, she started screaming. I was too close. She then shouted questions at me. "Why are you here? What are you doing? What are you taking pictures of my children? Do you have pictures of me?" I tried to explain it wasn't a telephone lens. It was a wide angle and it couldn't take pictures from her from across the park. But trying yelling that from 30 feet away to someone who thinks they're a mama bear only protecting their cub and excusing any behavior. I told her I only had pictures of birds and lamp cases and she said, "What birds? There's no birds." I shrugged and tried to walk away. She told me if she ever saw me again, she'll call the cops and have me arrested. The playground she was at was right next to my car. I hid in the corner for an hour trying to get into my car to leave. I put the camera on the shelf and haven't touched it since. Happened just the other day. I'm a manager at a grocery store. A customer wanted to purchase a $2,900 money order, paying cash. I did not feel comfortable counting that money in the open, so I took it to our own cash room. Turns out they only gave me $1,900. I brought it back out and she said that she got to her car and recounted. 30 minutes later, I get called into the store manager's office because the woman's mom called and says that she definitely had $2,900 and says I took the money away, that I took $1,000 from her. I was half asleep when my dad brought my stepmom home after someone drugged her at the bar and set her in the bed across from mine to sleep because she didn't want my little sister seeing her all twisted up like that in the main house. The next morning she asked me if I raped her while she was out. It took me off guard and I said no, but never was sure she believed me. I can be a bit weird. Accused of killing my bench ex-wife by naval investigators while in the USMC. She went to her parents' house while we were stationed out at state. I talked to her a few times and then a couple weeks later her parents called asking to talk to her. I told her she's not with me and told her she was with them. They said they dropped her off at the airport. They think I killed her and I'm hiding her from them, so they called my command, who called my base naval investigators. They asked me where she is and I kept telling them I don't know, and at this point didn't care. It was a real NCIS style questioning. Eventually they found out she was staying with a friend locally and I told them all to eat crap. 8,000 AUD worth of credit card fraud. I was 12 and my parents got a call asking for me. Scariest crap ever. Later found out that it was my parents' fault for not securing their data. I got fired from a job for stealing cash out of the register, which was a double whammy because I was putting money into the cash register at the end of my shift to cover shortfalls, which I always had. I really loved my job, so I would cover the shortfall on average about 10 to 20% of my wages, but it never occurred to me to count the amount of money in the till at the start of my shift. I think I was just so excited to be there, and being young, I couldn't imagine management lying to me. A year later, the manager gets caught stealing from the till. She's been doing it for years and blaming staff. Police go to the press charges, but the owner says no and tells them that they will take care of it internally. Well, not accused, more like suspended. I was hanging out with a circle of friends. The evening news came on. A story about some creep reported sneaking into the elementary schools and hanging out in the bathrooms. Nothing happened at this point, just some scared kids, and he wasn't caught. But due to multiple eyewitnesses, they were able to display a fairly confident police sketch. It was 100% me. In the deafening silence that followed, all my friends turned slowly to look at me. In a serious voice, one of my friends said, "I'm calling the cops." I was 19 and working my first job at a daycare. At the end of the day, after the kids leave, we spent about a last hour cleaning the rooms. There was no kids in the rooms, so I had my headphones in listening to music while I cleaned. A parent comes in looking for a bid that she had left. I handed it to her and wished her a good afternoon and got back to cleaning. The next day I get called by the director's office. The parent had told the director that I was listening to music, ignoring a screaming child in one of the cribs. There was absolutely no children in that room. I immediately started crying because I couldn't believe that a parent would tell a lie that could get me fired. I told the director to check the cameras. Yes, I was listening to music while cleaning, but there was absolutely no children in the room. I was told that if they found out I was lying, I would be fired. I did not get fired, but only lasted like 5 months total because even though the kids were great, the parents absolutely sucked. Got a rifle when I was like 10. It was just a pellet gun. I was 100% responsible. I never got any trouble with it. Then one day my mom was raging and demanded that my dad come and take this gun out of the house or she was going to break it. My parents are divorced, so my dad came and grabbed it and she never said a thing after that. Years, like 15 years later, I found out my mom's boyfriend had been shooting it off the deck and a pellet had bounced and shattered his rear truck window. He blamed it on me, a freaking 10-year-old. What a jerk.